Hi.
Yeah. Where's everyone?
Hey, Miriam.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey.
How are you doing?
Yeah, quite well,
Good.
as far as possible in this situation.
Yeah.
You?
Yeah, as you say, as far as possible. Yeah, okay.
I mean, life is getting very one-sided somehow
Yeah, indeed.
between desk and bed.
Yeah. So, do you know who you're expecting to join us?
No, I don't know.
We had a modeling meeting this morning and a few people that were there, which included Dennis and me and Ben, were all planning to be here, but there were a few others. I think I can't remember, Jan P and Peter, one or the other, or maybe both. I think not sure. Yeah.
So how are the other challenges papers progressing?
Mixed, I think, is probably the best. Some are really got going and are sort of, you know, propelling themselves quite well, but others sort of ground to a bit of a halt.
Yeah.
Everybody is so busy that sometimes it's quite hard to keep that momentum going. I mean, it is possible, but I think it requires somehow just everybody having very little tasks that they have to achieve, which they might gradually sort of fit in. You know, if it's too big, and of course people don't have time for all the meetings either, so it's just a question of trying to find ways to make it work. But Ben is one of our stars. He's very good at making all these meetings and writing things. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Robin seemed to be very enthusiastic also to write and contribute. So that was very
Yes, I hope so. We haven't seen, I think, I haven't seen anything of Robin for a long time. Well, I mean, there have been odd email responses and things. So I think he's finding the time to come to any sort of meeting like this difficult. I think that's true of a lot of people who say, you know, who seem keen to be involved but just have trouble actually managing to do it. But hopefully Robin will be involved.
Yeah. And so there was also this meeting about the vaccination, and that I didn't have time to attend that, but was there some kind of decision on whether to write a separate chapter on vaccination?
Yes, I think Bets seemed to think that that's what she would try to do and probably get. I mean, it seems such a big topic.
Yeah, so definitely.
So I think that would be the idea, but to split it into two, to have the non-vaccination stuff and then the vaccination challenges separately.
The last we heard of her was a couple of weeks ago, and she said that she would do a sort of complete draft or complete outline anyway. And then there were other people who would be, several other people I think were offering to come and write bits, but she said she thought it'd be best if she did an outline first. So I think we're still waiting for that.
Was there a recording of that meeting. Presumably, I mean, of the talks, presumably there was. I haven't checked. I mean, I know it wasn't live streamed, but presumably there is an informal recording that we can use. So if you wanted to catch up, I think we could find that on YouTube. But there was also, we've also discussed having another sort of half day discussion with a few talks on vaccines and particularly relating to the sort of evolving nature of the virus and all the strains and so on.
Yeah,
it would be really interesting. And in fact, if you had some ideas of people who might contribute to that, that would be very welcome.
well, we are doing some modeling work on that here in Utrecht, so I could.
So you or one of yours could perhaps.
Yeah, I could ask I have a colleague, Gana Rosnova, who's doing modeling work on that right now, and so I could ask her if she would want to present that.
That could be very very useful.
Hi. So last week I said that I would see if there was anyone either from the London School who works more in health economics who is interested in joining, and Matt Quaife has joined us.
Oh, great!
Who could potentially help with different sections, but also that section on health economics and inequalities. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself, Matt.
Yeah, cheers, Liz. Hi, it's nice to meet you all. I'm a health economist and I do a bit of modelling. Yeah, Liz's group at SHGM. It's great to see you. Thanks.
That's great, because I was just looking, that's a section without any names attached to it at the moment.
I also said that I would flag it to our contact tracing modeling group, and Helena is here as well. And there were a few other people who were interested in contributing but couldn't come today. So I sent them the outline and the Dropbox link. I hope that's okay. It includes Emma and Tim, who presented over the summer on contact tracing during the program, and Lorenzo, and Anna Foss from the London School, and Caroline Jay, who's more of a socio-technical behavioral scientist, computer scientist, who we're working with on the contact tracing project. So she might have another kind of perspective that might be interesting. So there were a number of people who said they were interested, and we'll see what we managed to pull together.
Yeah, okay.
Well, that all sounds good.
Of course, at some point we discussed that, let's say, most of the people should be people who are somehow involved in the Newton program.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not essential that. I mean, obviously, the drive for this came out of that program, but we're very happy to pull in extra people to help with that. So that's not.
Yeah, I know that several people were involved at various points, but yeah,
no, but it's fine. It's fine.
Whatever is sort of suits you is fine.
No, I think it's a question of bringing in the people we need to make the paper really work. So if there's expertise we don't have within the program, we need to bring it in.
And I think Jasmina was saying she was interested in contributing too, wasn't she? But she
can't make this afternoon. That's right.
Did she contact you, Miriam?
No. What's her name?
Jasmina
Panofska-Griffiths.
Ah, okay. I know her name from the literature, but she didn't contact me. No.
Well, she's been very active, but she's also very busy on other things. So she
I can imagine.
comes to meetings when she can. So I think, Paula, did she say specifically which part she was particularly interested in contributing to?
I don't remember that, but she was certainly
interested in contributing.
See if interested in contributing. I'll see if I can find her email. No, I think just she just says, I'm very happy to be involved and will also involve people I know who are working on interventions. But she's very busy this week, so it might have to wait till next week before she can get involved.
If I look at the outline, then there is only one section that is, let's say, without any names on it, and that's the section 2, data challenges of a future epidemic.
We could probably contribute to some of that, probably not all of it. For instance, we haven't been looking at mobility data, but we've been trying to engage with some data in relation to adherence. And I know, Matt, you've been working on social contact surveys. So if it was helpful to have some contributions to that, we could do that too.
I imagine that Jasmina would be able to contribute to that. She's been involved in talking about the sort of data issues vis-a-vis some of the other challenges papers. So
yeah, of course, it would be good to have, let's say, one person per section who is kind of the responsible or the person who drives it a bit to get the text together. So if anybody wants to do that so we have that section 2, and then there is challenges in modeling health economic and political aspects. So that Matt, is that what you would want to do in this chapter? I mean, would you want to be the kind of driver to get this text together?
So, excuse me. I'm happy. So it doesn't have anyone else's name on it. I'm happy to put my name there, and I can start blocking it out, and then
you have the link to the Dropbox, and I can open the.
That's what you sent me earlier, Liz. I think
so. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and last time we had this plan to for every section to have a separate Google Docs document, so that people can let's say work together in the Google Docs, and everybody can contribute and change text and so on. Is that still something that people agree on?
I think, yeah, or we've used Word occasionally as well, but at least if it's in the Dropbox, then.
I mean, there is now only, up to now, there's only one that's for section 4.3, the theoretical framework. So Robin actually made that and put in the kind of bullet points for this part, but I can make this for, let's say, all the sections in the document. So put it.
Elizabeth and I have also added our sections, but they're Word documents rather than Google Docs.
Yeah, the advantage of Google is that you can work on it online and everybody knows immediately what's going on. So it works quite well up to a certain point, and when, let's say, when it gets more towards the final stage, then it's of course better to work in a Word document and send it around.
I'm happy to stick it on a Google Doc instead. I don't have a strong preference. Yeah.
Okay, so actually then maybe I would also bring in my colleague Gana Rosnova, who's working on this modeling of interventions. Also, well, not only in vaccination, but we've also done some work on school closure and social distancing measures. Maybe she could also help with writing some parts, although she's obviously also very busy, but yeah, I think she would also like to be involved, if you don't mind.
No, of course not. That would be really good.
Yeah.
Where do you think she would best?
Well, she can help me with, for example, writing the the theoretical framework section, although we already have some other people working on that. But maybe she can also write something on the data challenges, at least part of it, because she has been working on fitting a model to data sources. And
or maybe naming people who aren't here, but maybe she and Jasmina might be able to combine on drafting something for that section.
Okay.
Because again, Jasmina is working on fitting models a lot, and we'll know.
Yeah. It would be great to meet her anyway, because I think her work is one of the few papers that have come out to really look at the impact of school closures and in relation with other measures. So
I think that's what she's doing this week, is finishing, trying to get something done on school closures.
Also to meet her and maybe discuss our work with her. So if you forward me her email, then I will contact her.
Will do. I'll do that now, Miriam. Let's see if I can find it.
And I think Ghana, my colleague Ghana, could also contribute to section 5, section 6, the challenges in parameter estimation and model fitting. So, I mean, the plan is there. We only need to realize it. I think that's the thing. So let's, it's good, I think, to have regular meetings again. And it's kind of always a motivation to get things done if you know that there will be a next meeting and if it's in the agenda already. So how about, I mean, for me this time, Friday afternoon is quite good actually, because I don't have as many regular other meetings on Fridays, so there's a little bit of room to think. And so it suits me actually quite well. So if we could keep this, and for me it would be great.
Yeah, I think I mean, obviously it suits the people who are here, but I haven't heard anybody saying in general that this is a bad time. It's more tends to be just that, you know, there's some other pressing deadline like Jasmina's today and so on, which could be any time. So
at least it's better for me than a Thursday night at, what was it?
No. Well, that was because of trying to get Mick involved. As well as you know, the people from the US, and that was about the only time with New Zealand plus Princeton plus the UK could manage. It was pretty horrible, really.
But Mick is in a different intervention challenges. Yeah,
he's doing sort of the animal human boundary, I think.
Okay. So, and do you think that we can also do this via the Newton Institute, like this link that we have now?
Yes. This link, I mean, if we timetable the thing in the bulletin, and it is in the bulletin at the moment, so unless we change it, it'll stay there. This link is used for all This link is used for all the timetabled slots in the bulletin. So anything that's fixed, it's the same link, and it will automatically get recorded. And then it's available on YouTube if anybody misses it and wants to catch up. There's another link in the bulletin that's always available. It doesn't get recorded, but it can be used by any of us anytime, just to catch up or have a chat, or without it being a sort of regular slot in the bulletin. So there are the two addresses, and they're always there.
And this slot at this time is now allocated for this intervention
Yes.
group. Okay.
Right. Yeah, you could call them the formal slots and the informal ones. So the formal one has these timetabled items that we get through the bulletin, but it is actually available there at other times. So if you wanted to do a meeting where you would like it to be recorded, perhaps for people who couldn't be there, as long as you avoid the timetable slots, you can use it anytime. And then, as I said, the informal one has no timetabling. Obviously, if it got used a lot, we might have to try and think of some way to stop people trying to use it at the same time. But I don't think that's a problem at the moment. It's only getting small amount of use.
But it is convenient because it means that, you know, if subgroups of one of these groups want to meet to work on a particular section, it provides a very easy way to do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I just ask what sort of timelines you're thinking about writing these things? What are the kind of the short-term stuff?
Current or deadline for the official deadline we're setting is the end of March, but we reckon that there are one or two that will probably not be ready by then. But because it's going to be an online volume, that's not so important. It could appear even if one or two were being too slow. We don't have to wait for the slowest. So.
Yes, I mean, things can be slotted into the special issue as and when they're ready. But we do hope that, you know, a significant number will, over the next couple of months, get to the point where they're ready to be submitted. So.
And I mean, with COVID, everything should be as fast as possible.
Yeah. Although, of course, in this case,
future also. So
yeah. Hopefully that makes it a bit better. They'll have a bit more of a, you know, a lifetime than the straight data analysis COVID things.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say hello.
Jasmina. Great.
Sorry, I joined a little bit late. Hello, Valerie. Thanks for the prompt. I have so many things going on. It's just kind of happening. Just to say, Miriam, we have met. You probably don't remember. I remember at London School when I was at London School, circa 2016. That sort of 20. It's very nice.
I gave a talk on something HIV related.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. So I remember that. It's very nice to see you again. I am very happy to be part of this team and take a grant of the work that's required from me at some point. At the sort of Ben knows the best way to sort of work is to kind of assign chunks of stuff to people and give them a very hard deadline to do, which they'll probably miss, but then they might make the next one, and then we sort of have an iteration process. I'm very happy to be given a job to do. I work, so in terms of what I do intervention wise, I had published work on contact tracing, testing and isolation. I have stuff that's been accepted. It's coming out on sort of other NPIs like masks and hygiene at schools. And now I'm working on vaccination, and I'm due to put a preprint out any day on the concept of reopening schools under the current vaccination strategy.
Okay, very interesting. Yeah, I just said before you were there that we are also, or my colleague Gana Rosnova, she's working on modeling school reopening, and we have a manuscript on medRxiv, which is now currently under review, and now she's working on including vaccination. So we have a lot of common interests, and I think I would like to bring you also in contact with Ghana so that we can discuss our work and see whether,
that would be great. Just to ask you, is your stuff looking at schools in the Netherlands?
In the Netherlands, yeah.
And what is your recommendation? I will read the paper, I promise.
Well, we don't really have a recommendation in that sense. I mean, okay. What we wrote is that we think that there should be more, let's say, care for other measures that can be taken in schools, like more hygiene measures and other like timetables, so that that more distancing is possible in schools, because that wasn't the case before. I mean, now our schools are closed, so right now there's nothing going on in schools, but before that, schools were just, let's say, running normally, and there were not many measures implemented. So we are saying that there should be, if we now reopen schools, which is planned for February, sometime in February, that there should be more measures to make sure that distance can be kept and stuff like that. So what we did in the paper is that we basically looked at how do school closures impact on the effective reproduction number, and what is the contribution of different age groups to the effective reproduction number. I can send you
I mean, it's very similar. My
Yeah.
question would be, did you look at scenario analysis of different contribution of susceptibility and transmission in different age groups, stratifying them primary, secondary?
We estimated a parameter for susceptibility for different age groups from the data, because the model was fitted to the data that we had, hospitalization data and seroprevalence data. And from that, we estimated this parameter of susceptibility, and it turned out to be, I think, something like 20% in the younger age groups in comparison to the, let's say, adult population.
So the cutoff being like 10 or 11 years old?
No, the cutoff was here 20 years. So we just looked at all the younger than 20, and then 20 to 60 and older than 60.
So that's different to the systematic reviews that suggest, I mean, I was also on one with, that looked at 50% being that number.
Yeah, it's different. I don't know that review, but sounds like
I can send it to you. Okay, so this is really useful, because this sort of conversation about the challenges that you getting to that number using the data, and me getting to that number by running a systematic review of meta-analysis, so analysis of analysis in a way, and them being different opens the floor to misinterpretation of outcomes, opens the floor to understanding where running a sensitivity analysis on a larger scale is important. And this brings Elizabeth's work around NPIs and the contact tracing layered up with these things being important. So if we can, for example, do more testing at school, and we can, if we have smaller groups which we can then easily trace, and this was the idea we had back in September, that opens up layers of intervention that you can target one at a time, if that's the way to put it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, approximately. I don't know whether I completely understand what you mean, but it's definitely an interesting discussion, and what you say, that it opens the, let's say, possibility of misinterpretation. That's, I think, a very important point, because the public health people usually just look at, let's say, the outcome, the number, what's the effectiveness, how many percent. They don't think anymore about all the assumptions that go into such an analysis, and then you easily come to different results, but under different assumptions possibly. So it's extremely important to compare that and to see what do we need to make things really comparable.
Okay, let me know what I will listen to you now, because you've already done work on the intervention chapter. So let me catch up with you guys.
Yeah. Do you have the link for the Dropbox where we have our?
Yes, I do. So I'm involved in the modeling data and estimation papers as well. And so I'm involved with that. So I've got it open. So there's one saying 4.6 challenges in parameter estimation by Ben. Or there is challenges in modeling on the 9th of December. What shall I open?
There's this outline challenges for modeling interventions of the 23rd December. Do you have that? That's basically the outline of the chapter that we have in mind. Okay. Where we put a couple of names also for, this has to be done. And I said earlier, when you weren't there yet, that for data challenges, that's where we still need somebody who can kind of drive this section and write something about it. Is that something you would feel interested in or comfortable with writing, or at least contributing?
Yeah, definitely. I can tell you in a way, reflect this with examples of experience of data I have used, how I've used it, what I would like the ideal data set to have been, etc.
Yeah. And of course, yeah, somehow, you know, the aim is to write what do we need for a future epidemic. So not only what is needed for COVID-19, but maybe a future epidemic is a different type of epidemic. So it shouldn't be only focused on COVID, but also on more generally what data challenges do we foresee, or what can be, let's say, what kind of data can be collected as a kind of preparedness for an epidemic, and what kind of data needs to be collected very fast during an outbreak. So these kind of things. And also how can we possibly use data that's already being collected, like mobility data from mobile phones, or these kind of more geographically structured data sets. So that's something that people are now exploring. How can we use that for example, monitoring the adherence to social distancing measures? But yeah, I mean, there must be much more this kind of data.
This section, in a sense, should be quite small, considering we have a big data paper which will address a lot of these challenges. So here it has to really focus on data needed to better inform interventions, projections.
Interventions. So either interventions to understand adherence, for example, adherence data, or monitoring of interventions. So as I say, mobility data can be used to monitor how well are people adhering to stay-at-home orders. But yeah, so there might be other.
But I think there is also an aspect here that I mentioned it. I don't know if I have so many meetings. I don't know where I mentioned what now. But there was a mention about so the different data sets that are showing the same thing. So say ONS data set, React data set, and dashboard data set. The way that we see, and then pillar 2 versus pillar 4 data set, for example. So why don't we see that decline or change in over time the same in these data set? And is one better than the other is a question that is a challenge for future epidemics. Some people are fitting to React data set, others are fitting to the COVID dashboard. The decline that you see in number of cases in January is different in the two. And untangling that isn't around data challenges. It's around you make a decision which data you want to use based on some constraints that you have, or technical abilities, or just simply having the data, and then you move from there, right?
Yeah, okay, but for my feeling, that goes too much into the technical details.
Okay.
I think that's it's important, definitely, but it's not. Yeah, I have the feeling it goes too far away from the, let's say, focus of this chapter. So it's maybe something that's important for this data chapter that you're also involved in, but I have the feeling that here we should really focus on what kind of data do we need to understand intervention impact, and to understand that's things like monitoring of intervention effectiveness.
Okay, I'm happy to draft something and put something on paper on this that we can reiterate.
Okay, great.
I
would also sorry.
I was only going to say, I think that the discussion that you were referring to about the different sorts of using the different sorts of data, I think that was probably yesterday in the estimation discussion, I think, and it probably fitted better I mean, those points might fit better there.
Yeah, yeah.
And I
think it
mean,
was
here one can always cross-reference, you know, just
Mhm.
make a small point and say, see, you know, the other paper for more details or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Could I?
I was just going to say, I think it was in the data paper with Nigel on.
Oh, it was okay. I knew it was one of the ones.
Yeah, it was one of
yesterday.
those, but yeah, I think it was data. But
Yeah.
See, we
wasn't
have
actually
too many
a list of
meetings.
it. I know.
Thanks, Ben.
Could I?
yeah, Dennis.
I read something. I mean, I think there's a lot of cross-cutting things, and I think there are problems of where things go. And one thing I'm not sure where it goes, and wouldn't like to see it disappear between the cracks, is I'm thinking particularly of new epidemics, of a new epidemic, is just understanding a new disease and all the details of it. That will be important for what data you want to gather and will be important for interventions. So, for example, if you look at there are various things which have been people have been slow to understand. I mean, the fact is mainly much more aerosol than surfaces. That's important. Took a long time to get appreciated. I was reading a very interesting long piece in the New York Times about the loss of smell, which, and apparently, you know, for instance, the monitoring, which I suppose is an intervention because you're trying to find people who have the disease and take them out, has been a lot of the easy monitoring has been by looking at people's temperature to see if they have a fever. And this article was saying that actually losing the sense of smell is one of the earliest indications, and that wouldn't be picked up at all by this. So, and if you imagine a new disease, you're going to have to yourself say, what are the symptoms of this? And I think the point of that article was that it took a long time for the important symptoms to be recognized, and some of them are perhaps not properly recognized even now. And of course, and again, the same sort of thing applies to the way the disease is transmitted. So you could also say this is all about understanding your new disease, trying to understand that it's different, because I think a lot of the problems in the early days of this disease were that people were trying to imagine it was the same as some existing disease. So therefore they knew what they needed data on, and they ignored what was different. I just feel that's a very, very important point, even if it's a simple one. And I feel it comes into papers like this one, but it comes into, and I was trying to think, where should it go? It could possibly go in emergence, it could go in modeling, it could go in data, or it could go here.
I mean, it could go, I think that's a really good point, and something that I worked with clinicians in Austria, as I might have mentioned, very early on, which had the biggest outbreak to start with. And they were all by themselves looking for a sense of loss of smell and taste without being told. And they captured, in many places, they sort of suppressed the outbreak to start with because they were looking at those symptoms. And Austria was one of the earliest that mentioned that. I don't know if the article said that.
No, not too bad, but maybe put the link to it, because it was a very comprehensive. I mean, as someone who has a partial loss of smell myself, I'm just very interested in the topic and the understanding of it. It was a very, very interesting background article.
But I think that's a really good point. Maybe send us the link.
I think they were suggesting it might be relevant for contact tracing, because if it's one of the earliest ways in which you know someone's got the disease, maybe you can do faster contact tracing. And again, there's the conflict.
I think that is a very good
standard
point.
way of doing things, and wanting to bring in new thinking.
The point, I think, simply what you are saying is we need to have an open mind when faced with a new virus, rather than almost think that we know it because it looks like something else. So that point has to be made in the introduction and then maybe picked up later. But I would suggest making it in the introduction and linking, if this article is a good sort of, even if it's an opinion piece, but comprehensive. What do you think, Miriam?
Well, in a sense, this point it appears in our outline in section 3, because although this sounds theoretical, it mentions theoretical framework, but basically this also defines what kind of things do you need to understand about the new epidemic and how it works biologically. So maybe, I mean, one thing that I could still imagine is that the data challenges section could move after the theoretical framework, because then you could say explicitly, okay, for getting data on this and this aspect of the biological mechanism of a certain pathogen, we need this and this data. Would that make
I think you're right, Miriam, that I think that where you've got theoretical framework for understanding, etc. I mean, I think that's where you could mention this kind of point, that it's important to be open-minded, that any new disease, the parameters may be different and the symptoms and all sorts of aspects can be different, and you need an open mind to this possibility. And then, as you say, if the data comes after that, then of course it follows that.
Yeah. So we could still think about switching section 2 and 3 in order.
Yeah. I think even, I mean, maybe it's me, but I think when modeling interventions at the stage, say we are doing vaccination, or when we were doing test and trace, when we didn't have too much data, the frameworks that we have in terms of mathematical models allow sensitivity analysis and therefore allow exploration. So sometimes, yes, it's good to have data, but even with scarce data, you can make scenario analysis. So when you're talking about interventions, maybe the data is not one of the top challenges, is what I'm thinking. It's more towards the bottom of the challenges, and understanding why you need to do the interventions and what possible scenarios may be options.
Yeah, but especially the data on the biological details, I think that needs to be there, because you need some information on incubation period and latent period and these kind of things, because that kind of also determines the effectiveness of your interventions. I think that's key data.
I think the other thing as well is between pandemics. So I think one of the things we've discussed in other chapters is the fact that, you know, this is not just for the case when we're in the midst of a pandemic, but trying to do the groundwork between potential pandemics. And one of the things we could be doing is looking at surveillance data for potential feeding into intervention models when the pandemic arises, and when we know what type of disease or type of virus it is, we can then say, well, we already have the data on contact tracing, we already know the networks, those can feed directly into the models as soon as we need them, rather than starting from point zero at the beginning of an epidemic and not being able to do anything.
Yeah, that's a very important point. So to distinguish what data can you actually collect before the epidemic, and what do you have to collect once the epidemic has started? Because I think there is a lot one can do in beforehand, but it needs to be clear that this kind of data is important. I think before COVID, nobody realized how important really this contact data is, and that we actually need it in much more detail than we have it now. Okay, but yeah, so I think we can still think about the order, let's say the best order of the different sections of this chapter. Maybe it's something that we can decide on in a later stage, whether it's better to move this data section a bit downwards and start with this more general framework section.
I would also, if there is space, be keen to be involved in the non-pharmaceutical interventions, because I've done it, and possibly the vaccination one, but maybe, I mean, I don't know who's leading the vaccination stuff, and I can...
Yeah, the vaccination
I mean, if we need...
papers is going to be relatively a small part, because there is going to be a separate challenges paper on vaccination. So we here basically only want to,
Okay.
enter it as one of a number of pharmaceutical interventions, and then kind of cross-reference to this other paper.
Yeah.
I think.
I guess we should put antiviral stuff. I guess is treatment as prevention, the antiviral stuff like ivermectin and things like that.
Well, treatment as prevention, that's something that comes from the HIV field, and it's more, it means that you treat people who are, who have the virus. And so on the one hand, you treat them, of course, because you want to make people better, but on the other hand, treatment reduces viral load, and so you have a large impact also on transmission. So for HIV, it's kind of the new strategy to try to get rid of HIV by treating as many as possible people as early on as possible, so that you reduce viral loads and stop them transmitting to others. And yeah, I don't know whether that's also
in the HIV field, that would be both ART and PrEP, or just one of them?
It would be ART. I mean, PrEP you take before you're infected. So
yeah.
PrEP is like
Yeah.
Okay,
so that would be, so in this case, it would mean antiviral treatment of people who may have it to reduce symptoms and things like that. And in ivermectin, for example, is one thing that was suggested that may work. And there are clinical trials on other things that we could put, but that may be going in the vaccination paper.
So let's say in a disease like COVID, you're probably, treatment will come too late to stop transmission.
Yeah, it will be more for reducing severity of symptoms.
Yeah, exactly. So for in that situation, it doesn't have a really big impact on the epidemic. But if you have infections that with a much longer infectious period, then treatment might really have a large impact on the epidemic. So that's why this point is here. But there might be, this list can probably be extended because, there might be other pharmaceutical interventions of which it's interesting to see what is their impact on the epidemic.
So would it be, so I work, there is a person that I work, so a group that I work with is within the Institute of Disease Modeling, and my vaccination work is collaboratively done with them. And there's a person there who's been working a lot within the group on pharmaceutical and non-pharmaceutical interventions, called Catherine Rosenfield. And I was wondering if maybe I could invite her to contribute here to parts of the paper, if you think that would be useful.
I don't know that institute. I don't know what is it.
It's an Institute for Disease Modeling. It's a Bill Gates funded institute within in Seattle.
Oh yeah. I don't know.
So it was the people. So I work with them. You probably are aware of the Optima HIV work, and I worked with them on that. And then Covaxin became the model after that collaboration for COVID.
Okay. I don't know. I think Valerie and Dennis should say something about that, because in a sense, these papers were supposed to be like coming out of the Newton Institute. So, we want to keep them also a bit based on the people who participated in the Newton program last year. Because of course there are hundreds of people who work on these issues, and
I think so, primarily one would try to sort of perhaps to focus on the IDP program and see how far one can get. But if there are very obvious gaps that we can't, we haven't got the expertise properly to fill, then it's obviously worth bringing in other people. But so I think it's a question of how far we can get and whether we can cover it enough.
Good. Okay, I get it. Can I just ask, is Graham Ackland part of the IDP from Edinburgh?
I can't remember it. Do you remember, Dennis? He could well have been invited at the beginning. I mean, we've got a very long list of people who sort of signed up at the beginning and haven't played very much part.
No, they're really the
They were the ramp people, yeah.
The ramp, yeah.
Yeah. So I think he certainly participated to the extent of being involved in some 1 or 2 meetings early on, but whether he actually formally signed up as a participant, I don't know. Don't remember.
Okay.
I think.
Was there a special reason, Jasmina?
Because he's interested in looking. We are on the side looking at some stuff that may involve vaccination and NPIs.
Mm-hmm.
So he might be an obvious person to involve here, but I'm happy to just wait, see where we get to and come back to that.
Yep. I'm happy either way, whichever you think.
And the other person is Mark Woolhouse, also at Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was definitely.
Yeah, I'm sure he was. I think it's
been too busy to do much, but he gave a talk. And,
yes.
And he's involved in the liquid problem paper at the moment.
Yeah. So either or both of those would be absolutely fine.
So I think so sounds like I have a meeting at 3, so I'm gonna wrap it up for myself. I will work on the part 2, and then if you want me to do anything on 5 or 4, that would be for the following week, if that's all right.
That's fine, yeah. I said earlier, I don't know if you were there already, that I will make Google documents for each section, and then everybody can access them and can put comments or participate, so that we get a first draft of the text in these documents.
Okay, and then maybe just before the meeting, we could potentially for I know Dennis is very strict on keeping records. Maybe the day before the meeting or the morning before the meeting, we could have a version of that document put in the IDP folder, so that we have some record and we have it there, and then it can be archived and tracks progress.
Well, I think the Google Docs can be in the Dropbox anyway, can't it?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Oh, okay, that's fine then. I thought they are just links that we would have to access.
There's the one section there.
There is one section already. I will make links for the other sections.
Yeah.
Okay, so I won't put mine up as a separate doc. I'll wait for you to make the link, Miriam, and then I'll.
Well, if you have one already, you.
I just have the Word document, and I could go ahead and make it a Google Doc.
Yeah. If you want to do that, that would be fine.
I can do the same for my document as well that I've uploaded. Yeah. It's currently Word, but I'll translate it.
Yeah, because then we also, everybody knows what has been written already. I think that's very useful. Then you're not kind of in the empty space while you're writing, but you know a bit what have others done.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll, after this meeting, I will send an email to the whole group. So if Jasmina, I don't have your email address.
I think you will now, because I sent you an email, Miriam, with it in. So it'll be in your email.
Could I say
and Matt Quayle, or what was his name?
Matt Quaife.
Quaife.
I can send you his email if you don't have it.
I don't have it.
Yeah, Elizabeth, that's good.
So I will add these 2 people to my mailing list. And I will send around an email saying that we will from now on meet on Fridays at 3 and
at 3 or at 3 your time, at 2 our time.
Okay. Yeah, I have to be careful with that.
I was going to say, if people are definitely going to be involved, then they should be added to the Dropbox with editing rights, which I can do.
Yeah.
And we also have the Slack channel. And I was going to say the Slack is, I think you'll find you are members of the Slack. And well, one of the features of that is on that you can actually look at all the participants on the Slack channel and, for instance, get their email address.
Yeah, I did that for my.
So there is
mailing.
no, I'm not added to the intervention on there.
No, that's cool. You weren't there.
I think you can add yourself to the intervention if you have any problems.
Oh, okay.
I think once you're on that IDP Slack, you can add your.
I think you can add anybody who's on that, the whole 100 and whatever, can add themselves to any particular channels they want. So you can just browse all the channels.
But the channel, there's only, I can only see maybe in the challenges, paper challenge, no?
If you
I can only see channel 5, 6, 7, and 8.
If you browse all the channels, you may be able to see others and be able to add yourself, I think.
Otherwise, maybe Ben, you can add me because you know my email and stuff.
Elizabeth, do you already have access to all this?
I'm on the Slack, yes.
Right.
I'm in the channel. I don't think Matt is, because I don't know whether he's been involved with the program before.
No, so perhaps you could liaise with him too.
Sure.
Okay, I'm there now.
Good.
Great. Thank you so much. Can I go?
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for coming.
Bye, everyone. Nice to see you. Meet you all. Bye-bye.
Bye, Justina.
Bye.
Right.
Okay. Now, I think we discussed everything. So was nice seeing everybody again. And let's hope that we can keep in touch and meet somewhat more often in the next weeks.
That would be excellent.
Thanks very much, Miriam.
Thanks very much, Miriam.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.